Right then, so thanks for joining us at the Place Regeneration Housing Committee. I'm stepping in for Councillor Jeffries, who's not here today. So just before we're doing introductions and say who we are, some new faces around the table, we'll just get some of the formal bits done first, which is agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. Miles, do we have any of those?
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Denise Jeffrey, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next one is the declaration of disposable pecuniary interests, and it'd be good to know today, having some quite firm project approvals. Just think deep, and if you've got any connection to any of those in any way possible, doesn't matter if you don't think about it now, but if it comes up during the items, then do shout out. There's exempt information. There are no items today requiring exclusion of the press and public, so we can press on with that. And number 4 is the minutes of the meeting held back on the 26th of October 2023. So just to ask the committee to review and agree those minutes. Just looking around the table, doesn't look like anyone wants to pick. Oh, there we go. Over to you, Tamsin.
It was just a declaration of interest on the Brownfield Housing Fund agenda item. There are 3 projects there which have Homes England funding involved, so I just wanted to declare that interest.
Thanks for that, and we'll make sure that's noted. Okay, so moving on, I'm appreciating that's approval of those minutes, and we can move on. So the chair's update. So yeah, we've got a number of new faces here today, including the deputy chair and some other faces who've been moved around, perhaps in portfolio places. Just to let you know that the representative from the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership, Helen Lennon, has now left the committee and been succeeded by Andy Walhead, who will introduce himself properly. Also express thanks to Masood Ahmed for his dedicated service and obviously his contributions have been invaluable, and we warmly welcome his successor, who I've already had a chance to speak to on numerous occasions, Moses Crook, and you'll introduce yourself shortly. I'm sure you'll take a fresh perspective of things, and we always welcome that as a committee. And also welcome Annette Joseph. But before we do that, we'll do actually a formal round of introductions, and we'll start with yourself, if that's okay.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Annette Joseph, MBE. I am a private sector member of the Mayor's Business Advisory Board, and I run an organisation called Diverse and Equal that trains underrepresented adults for roles in tech.
My name's Miles Larrington. I'm the Committee Services Officer for this committee.
I'm Councillor Helen Hayden. I'm Executive Member for Sustainable Development and Infrastructure at Leeds City Council.
Good morning, Stephen Moore. I'm a National Operations Manager for City Fibre.
Morning all, Tamsin Hart-Jones. I am an Assistant Director at Homes England.
Morning everybody, I'm Andy Walhead. I'm here as the Chair of the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership, but in my day job I'm Chief Exec at WDH, which is a large housing association.
Good morning, I'm Guillermo Rodrigues, part of the Research and Intelligence team of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Good morning, Peter Glover, also from the Research and Intelligence team at the Combined Authority.
Good morning, Nicholas Cormier, a Development Manager at Brownfield Housing Fund.
Morning everyone, Justin Wilson, Head of Environment and Infrastructure at West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Morning, Helen Foreman, Urban Design Manager at the Combined Authority.
Morning, Kate Thompson, Head of Economic Implementation, Combined Authority.
Morning, Rebecca Greenwood, Head of Housing at West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Good morning everybody, Ben Aspinall, Managing Director of Aspinall Verdi. I'm a private sector rep.
Hi all, I'm Lisa Littlefair, Cities Director at Mott MacDonald, and also a private sector representative.
Yeah, morning, Councillor Ben Burton from City of York Council.
Councillor Alex Shaw, Portfolio Holder for Regeneration, Planning and Transport in Bradford Council. Morning, Councillor Mo Crook, portfolio holder for Housing, Highways and Transport, Kirklees.
Morning, I'm Jen Connolly, Associate Director for Improving Population Health, and I work jointly between the West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Morning everyone, I'm Richard Butterfield. I represent the North Eastern Yorkshire region of Historic England.
Good morning everyone, I'm Cathy Elliott, I'm Chair of NHS West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board and I'm Deputy Chair of West Yorkshire's Health and Care Partnership, and I'm a new attendee for this committee.
Hi everyone, Councillor Michael Graham, portfolio holder for Regen at Wakefield Council. Nice to meet you.
Alison Gillespie, Head of Place and Environment Policy at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
And Liz Hunter, Director of Policing, Environment and Place at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. This is my usual bit where I say please use the system because not only does it help people here, but also when we are live streaming this, so the camera will zoom to you. If you've still got your mic on but are not speaking, the camera will still be on you. But you've all done so well as we've gone around the table.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're all very welcome, and yeah, 10 out of 10 for all of your microphone etiquette. Well done on that. Okay, thank you, and good to see you all, and especially new members. Moving on to agenda item number 6, the monitoring indicators. So, yeah, this paper is going to provide a bit of an update on indicators already agreed by the committee. The purpose of this item is to provide a bit of context of the discussions. It also aims to respond to points raised by the committee at the last meeting. And I know this is always a very interested agenda item and people have got a lot of thoughts and questions on it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Peter, to flesh this out and let us know where we're at.
Actually, Chair, I'm just going to hand over to Guy Rodriguez, who's the author of the paper.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. So, as said by the chair, the purpose of the paper is to provide the most up-to-date indicators agreed with the committee. We report them when new data is available. So this time we include 6 different indicators: net additional dwellings, private rents, household energy efficiency, estimates on fuel poverty, and indicators on digital connectivity, both mobile 4G and gigabit cable coverage. On top of that, we added 2 new indicators that were published by DLUC around the completions and housing starts of affordable housing. So the key takeaways from the data, so starting with net additional dwellings, they declined in the last financial year, but they have been relatively high for the last decade anyway. So net additional dwellings, they cover new build, conversions and change of use. Tracking them is quite important to understand if we are delivering the housing provision to meet our targets, having the right homes in the right places. And in in 2022-2023 financial year, there was roughly 6,400 net additional dwellings, roughly 1,000 below the previous year, which was particularly high at the last decade. This is likely to be related by cost factors. We know that not only materials, but the cost of finance, interest rates rose in recent years. Those factors are likely to affect both the supply of housing, the cost of constructing it, but also the demand of it on the credit part of it. In terms of affordable housing completions, we got the highest number registered since 2010-2011. So DLUC now publishes data for us to better understand it. Affordable housing includes social rent, affordable rent, shared ownership among other groups. These 3 groups represent most of it currently. So in 22-23, there was around 1,500 affordable housing completions. So it's a quite significant share of the total net additional dwellings in the area. Was the highest number recorded in the last 11 years, and most of them were affordable rent and shared ownership, around 75% of all of them. In terms of housing starts, which give us a little bit of a potential picture of the next years, it was not as strong as the year before. There was around still 1,140 new affordable housing starts in 22-23. It's around half of the previous year, but it was very strong, and we see that in housing completions being very high. in the year afterwards. So again, it could be related to cost factors, and there are projects that haven't started yet, but will probably be collected in the next set of data we get from the next year, like the Brownfield Housing Fund. So we expect to have more probably likely to be a recovery. Then on the market, on the private market, it's very important to track how it is performing. So in the last 5 years, our estimates suggest rents rising above the national average. In most districts, Calderdale being the exception, and they were rising around 20%, significantly above the England average, which is something quite recent. In previous years, or before 2016 roughly, we haven't been observing that trend. In terms of household energy efficiency, we have been rerun our internal estimates on the data as we identified some issues with the official data provided by DLUC. And we do observe that West Yorkshire housing stock is less efficient than the national average, partially because of the age of the stock. So around 38% of our dwellings are registered EPC C or above, considered efficient, below the national average, and all the districts, their average is below England's average, with Leeds having the highest one, around 42% of dwellings considered efficient. The new dwellings, so we do see that most of them are efficient, as we would expect. 93% of them are EPCC or above. It's slightly below England's average, but we are doing investigations to understand if there's any issue with the data or whether if it is driven by conversions and other types of change of use. In terms of fuel poverty, we have seen an increase in recent years with increase of energy prices due to macroeconomic shocks. And with the new energy price gap, we expect our estimates for energy efficiency to decline from its peak at 29% of households being in fuel poverty, but it's still around 6 percentage points its levels in late 2021. So prices have been stabilizing, but our estimates on fuel poverty still show higher levels of fuel poverty than before the shock, but in a positive trend. In terms of digital connectivity, focusing on full fibre, 70% of all premises in West Yorkshire are covered, significantly above the national average of 62%. Calderdale being the only local authority below the national average, but improving in the last year. And this is driven by being more rural than the other districts. In terms of 4G coverage, all districts have coverage above the national average, with the exception of Wakefield. All of the other ones are above 90%, but still Wakefield it's slightly below 90%, but above the England's average. So on digital connectivity, there's been made progress, and that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Lots of data there, some good, some not so good, but I'm sure members of the committee will have some questions for you on there. I'm looking around the room. I guess I would say, just to kick things off, clearly the issues around fuel poverty are like distressing and are something and a key focus of areas, and probably going to be some cut through to perhaps some of the discussions we have on health lately and forging stronger connections with our health partners. But I guess good to see in terms of people being able to access data, the stats there around connectivity and full fibre and 4G are cheering in terms of easing digital isolation for perhaps some of those communities who do want to reach out. Is there anyone in the room who wants to pick up anything? Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering about reports going forward and the link between household energy efficiency and fuel poverty, and the stats there with the PC ratings, etc. And if there's a piece of work to do there with who is in fuel poverty and what type of house they're living in, and then of course there's health implications of that, of living in a drafty, damp, cold house. The link then but they do come after each other in the report, and I'm just curious about the link to fuel poverty, whether it is just energy prices or the fact that you have to heat a house that's very drafty.
Okay, thank you. Don't know whether you want to come back in on that one.
Sure. So the energy poverty estimates that we do, they try to capture both factors, so the wage bill, but also the percentage of people living in drafty and efficient housing. This has been, because there's plenty of new data that could be analyzed by ourselves, we are doing a lot of work trying to understand how much we can take from the data, from the raw data, and build our estimates and have a better informed analysis on the efficiency of the dwellings.
And I wonder if, once again, some of that might be picked up later in terms of the discussions we're having. Councillor Crook.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to ask a question about the EPC comparison with West Yorkshire to the national picture, because I was previously aware of the unique situation we have in Kirklees housing because of our old stock, but I didn't realise that it translated to a systemic issue across West Yorkshire. And I understand there are some unique factors here to do with propensity for back-to-back housing and so forth. But I wondered if we had any figures or just rough estimates of the magnitude of the investment required across West Yorkshire to bring us just back in line with the national picture in terms of the energy performance of our housing. I know how much it's going to cost for Kirklees' housing portfolio, and it's eye-watering. If we understood perhaps the magnitude of the problem, it might be something that we could drive politically to ask for investment to help meet the challenge. Thanks.
That's helpful reflection. Guillaume, you come back.
At the moment, we don't have those estimates, but as I said, this is a part that we are getting better data and we are getting better understanding. So over time, we're trying to build a picture as informative as possible. So we know the position, we know what the current EPC, how much it could be improved, the total number of dwellings. We have a clear understanding. On the cost part, I'm not aware that we have that information now, but it's possible probably to do something in the future.
Fantastic. And Andy?
Yeah, just on that point, I think most of the social housing providers will probably have that information, like you say, Kirklees have, and certainly we have that, and I'm guessing most of the big housing associations will, and the local authorities. Probably what it won't be as obvious as in the private sector. So there'll be a lot of people living in private rented where the stock isn't up to EPC, and probably won't have that, but it probably could be pulled together for the social housing sector.
Brilliant. Rebecca?
Thank you, Chair. Just thought it's worth raising on that point that through the Better Homes Hub work that we are doing, the Energy Savings Trust, who we're working with, who presented to Climate Committee, I think last week, are doing some work on exactly that point that you've raised, to look at sort of costings of what it would cost to increase energy efficiency of our homes to various different standards. We can come back to the committee with timescales for some of that, but it probably just adds to some of Guy's points that is actually work that is ongoing at Combined Authority, so it's something we're thinking about and have commissioned work to do.
It's probably actually worth having a look at the minutes for that meeting, because we discussed that in fair detail, to be honest. Is there anyone else that wants to pick up on this? Just a reminder to people, this is obviously a movable feast because data changes from 1 month to the next, and as we're delivering projects, I'm sure fellow elected members, certainly for me in Calderdale, the amount of casework I'm getting about roads being dug up for gigabit, which is great. It shows that the rollout is happening at pace. Kathy.
Thank you. You've referenced it twice, so I thought I'd respond. The point on fuel poverty and fuel efficient housing, I think, is a really key thing for us, because within the NHS we'll be looking at respiratory diseases, how that's affecting certain communities. So I think that cross-referencing, which is one of the reasons why I've come to join this committee and working with my colleague Jen Connolly, I think this is something that we can do some cross-referencing on. I know our colleagues in Leeds can get down to street level as well as postcode level in looking at certain health issues, and I think that cross-referencing would be really helpful. So we can take that away to consider.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much, Guillaume. Hopefully we will see improvements where we need to see improvements and see reductions where we need to see reductions. So much appreciated. Thank you very much. And we need to just note that, and I think we've done that with success. So moving on to a really exciting item, which is all of the capital approvals. And the great thing is there's coverage of every district within these capital approvals, so something for everyone. I wonder if I can ask, I don't know if it's Patricia or Nicholas.
It will be me, Chair, so Kate Thompson.
Right, fantastic. Thank you very much for interjecting. Just to give a brief outline of each scheme in order, and then we can pick up questions per item if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just provide a quick bit of context for the new committee members. So the Brownfield Housing Fund comes with a government specific set of criteria which the projects need to meet in order to access the fund. These include sites being designated as brownfield, projects being Green Book compliant, so that's Treasury Green Book compliant with a minimum benefit cost ratio of 1. They need to evidence market failure to demonstrate they cannot proceed without public sector funding, and homes must start on site before March 2025. So to date, the combined authority has committed funding for 18 projects, which together equate to just under 4,000 new homes, including just over 1,400 affordable homes. And with the further 9 projects under consideration at committee today, these represent a further 1,100 new homes for the region, including over 350 affordables. So, subject to approvals and finalisation of contractual terms, the region's well on the way to meeting the delivery target set by government of enabling 5,400 new homes by March 25. So, as you've outlined, Chair, the business case summaries are in the pack, so I'll only provide a high-level detail given the number we've got to canter through today. So I will start with Bradford Road Idle. This scheme will remediate 0.4 hectares of brownfield land, develop 51 specialist senior living apartments on the former Blake Hill Works in Idle, including 36 one-bedroom apartments and 15 two-bedroom apartments. The bill will use modern methods of construction, will include photovoltaic panels on the roofs to reduce emissions and fuel costs. It is located on a main bus route, and homeowners will have access to an enterprise car club to promote sustainable travel and reduce reliance on a personal car. The benefit cost ratio is 1.3 to 1. This is categorised as acceptable value for money. Total scheme cost is 10.783 million. So approval is sought today to proceed through decision point 2 to 4, business justification case, and work to commence on activity 5, delivery, together with a funding approval of 341,500 from the Brownfield Housing Fund. I'll pause there, Chair.
Perfect, thank you very much. Not sure if any colleagues, perhaps specifically from Bradford, if anyone's here, want to talk about that. Looking in your direction, Alex.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to see applications coming from the private sector as well. So obviously this isn't a Bradford Council scheme, but know the area near in our constituency, and it's quite close to quite a few public amenities as well, and as the officer said, being on a public transport route, so hopefully it's in a good sustainable location for amenity as well, with local shops in the area. So pleased to see it come forward, and it's a kind of unused brownfield site, so it's bringing it back into use, and we've got quite a good record of that in Bradford, and it's good to see that continue.
Fantastic. That sounds great. And oh, there you go. Sorry about that. Is that you, Ben?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thanks, Kate. I just wanted to expand on, not on this specific project necessarily, but on Kate's preamble for the introduction, for the context, you know, for the new members. And I think it might be helpful to clarify a little bit more about the assurance framework. I mean, obviously, we're, as a private sector, I appreciate I'm not a voting member of this committee, but I think the things, as I've read through all the papers, the things that I'm looking for are things like the land value and the profit element that are within the total cost envelopes. And obviously, I appreciate that they're not reported explicitly in these reports, but I think they're two really big costs that are involved in these sort of capital development projects. So I think you might be able to expand, Kate, on that, because I know we've discussed that in the past. And then I think the other things that I was bearing in mind as I was reading through these was really the different sort of ranges and responses to the climate emergency. Some schemes can clearly perform better than others, I think, that were coming through. And similarly, in terms of the quantum of affordable housing, some are 100% affordable housing schemes and some are doing nothing. And, the understanding perhaps some of the reasons for that is quite important, especially when you consider profit and land cost and so on in the mix. But I am aware that these are things that are picked up in the background. And also, so a final point was, I wasn't always entirely clear whether you were being asked to contract with a local authority or you were contracting with a private sector entity or whatever, and obviously the due diligence around who you contracted with, and that's all relevant in terms of the profit margin. If private sector aren't going to do anything without a profit, it may be different drivers for the public sector. So they're just generic comments, really. But I think they do apply across all of the reports. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. And that's I think really important scene setting for where we're at. And you picked out specifically, I guess, how injecting policy and good policy specifically around climate is being picked up, and there's a golden thread running through here, whether it's having good connections, placemaking, photovoltaics, or whether it's actually putting these developments in the centre of towns where those connections already are available. So, okay, I'm not seeing anyone else, but sorry, yes I am, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to Ben's, I mean, I know a lot of these are probably through planning at this stage, so haven't had to consider it, but it's, I just wanted to throw in biodiversity net gain as well as an important point that needs to be considered for all these schemes going forward.
Very much so, and it'll be interesting to see how different local authorities and we in the round take an approach to bionet gain, really, within and beyond the boundaries of our projects. So I guess what I'm going to do is, just based on the team recommendations, I'm not going to read them all out, but is everyone happy to proceed? If you can just throw your hands in the air, if that's okay. Maybe like you just don't care, or just throw your hands in the air. Okay. Thank you very much. So that's that one done. Moving on. Sorry.
I noticed that you are looking at, particularly, I think it's 2 senior living developments, and we're looking at dementia-friendly housing later. And it was something I did ask Liz beforehand, but how do you, through this funding programme, encourage good practice and consideration, particularly when you're identifying certain recommendations for this kind of housing development? So I appreciate, as Liz was sharing with me earlier, this is later on in the process, but how can we encourage developers to think about the principles that are being identified? Thank you.
Thank you. So in anticipation, given the agenda today, we did contact a couple of our project sponsors to ask them had they factor in the dementia task force's recommendations into their plan. We've only had feedback from one so far, which is Middle Cross, and I'm pleased to confirm, whilst they won't be fully dementia ready, they have, however, supplied a long list of very positive responses to the design criteria. So as part of the fund, we can start to encourage new applicants, but recognising we are now heading towards the end of year 4 of a 5-year programme, and for us a lot of the projects are already through planning, because we need to get a start on site before March 25, but working in parallel with colleagues on the policy side, so Helen and Rebecca through the housing strategy, it's something for future programmes that we can start to encourage and potentially embed throughout.
That's brilliant, and hopefully now that's been picked out and will be later, that's something we can embed a little bit more into our thinking as we move forward. Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving on to Elland Town Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So, as the name might imply, this project involves the renovation and conversion of the Grade 2 listed former Elland Town Hall. The scheme will produce 55 new rental homes comprising 44 one-bed and 11 two-bed apartments with refurbished commercial premises on the ground floor. The scheme is located centrally within the Elland Town Centre conservation area, and its progression has the potential to support the wider regeneration of the town, which is also currently being supported through the Future High Streets funding from the government. The benefit cost ratio is 1:1, which is categorised as acceptable value for money. The total scheme cost is 7.243 million. Approval is sought to proceed through decision point 4 for business case and work to commence on activity 5 delivery, together with a funding approval of £840,000 from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Thank you very much for that, Kate. This is on my patch, so it'd probably be worth saying a few words. Ellen's getting a fair bit of funding at the moment with Future High Streets. Obviously the train station package thing currently working its way through our systems, and I guess it just to pick out, it's really good to see retrofit on an existing property being done and making that work, and it's testament to the project that it's been able to deliver the amount that it has. Creating homes within the town core, I think, is vital to its regeneration and success, so really pleased to see that. I'm assuming no one else wants to talk on that apart from myself. Oh, Richard.
Just a brief point there. I mean, it's brilliant that a landmark building like the Town Hall in Elland can be brought back into economic use like that. I'm really pleased to see the mix with residential on the upper floors, but also maintaining some retail or food and beverage provision on the ground floor as well, just to support the kind of life of the town as well. So it's really positive, and we've been involved with a conservation area management plan for that area as well. So it's all great to see how that's come together.
Thanks so much, Richard. And Beth?
I just wanted to sort of confirm that, is it correct my understanding that it's all market rent, there's no affordable housing by virtue of the heritage, the costs associated with the heritage building, is that correct?
Kate, are you going to come back on that one?
Yes, apologies, Chair. I was just checking my figures. Confirm there's no affordable within that.
Okay, I'm going to ask everyone if we can, again, based on the recommendations of the paper, are you happy to proceed? Quick show of hands. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Kate. Moving on to the next item, which is, I hope I'm saying this right, How Top Court. Hoff. I knew it was one of the two. Thanks for correcting me, Councillor Hayden. Over to you, Kate.
Okay, Hofftop Court Leeds. This scheme will develop 82 new build council homes and is therefore 100% affordable. The site for development is the former Houghside High School, with the former school building having been demolished in the 2021-22 financial year. The project will be a blend of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses and 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. The scheme does include air source heat pumps and has a no gas approach, meaning no gas boilers will be installed at the properties. EV charging points will be included in the development for all homes and car parking spaces for the apartments. The value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 3:1, which represents a high value for money. Total scheme cost is 22.4 million, and approval is sought to proceed through decision point 2 to 4 business justification, work to commence on activity 5 delivery, together with a funding approval of 1.64 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Thank you so much. Any colleagues want to speak? Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, I just really want to support this. I mean, it's part of our council house growth, which is really proud that, you know, we're going to have 1,500 council houses built in the 5-year period that we aimed for, and I know that this has taken a lot of development from the team to bring forward, so I'm really excited to see it happening. Thank you.
brilliant. Looks like a really transformational project. Again, looking for approval for the recommendations within there from people. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on, which is Kirkby Road, Oaklands.
Thank you, Chair. So this scheme in Hemsworth will deliver a total of 128 homes consisting of a blend of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses and 7 2-bedroom bungalows. The development will use energy efficient materials in the fabric of the buildings, including in the blocks and insulation, to reduce energy loss and achieve the highest possible energy rating. Heating systems are intended to be based on air source heat pumps, and EV charging points will be installed at every property. Just like to point out, this is our first SME applicant, so we're very excited to support them. They are a local developer that employs local trades and includes an annual intake of apprentices. There are 3 apprenticeships as part of this scheme. The value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 2.5 to 1, which represents high value for money. The total scheme cost is 39.271 million, and approval is sought to proceed through decision point 2 to full business case, with work to commence on activity 5, together with a funding of approval of 1.257 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Fantastic, and we always like to see local job creation and economies working at scale. I think Councillor Burton, was that you first?
Yeah, thank you. It's got loads of positives, this scheme. I think my only question for obviously has no affordable provision and quite a high cost benefit return. The only could someone who with experience and knowledge of the area and the scheme speak to the kind of benefits of building a fully private market scheme in this area in terms of regeneration? Because I think obviously you suspect that if it was offered forward for affordable housing, somebody might come forward for that purpose as well. So it's just interesting to get some more detail on that case study, I think.
I'm going to bring in Ben first, just before.
Yeah, thank you. That was going to sort of be my point as well. I was thinking that the cost benefit ratio is quite high, and the sort of the funding asked per unit is relatively low compared with some of the other ones, and where there's an opportunity to work to maybe even provide further funding to deliver affordable housing on the site, but there may be reasons why there is none.
Kate, feel free to come back.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I refer the committee back to the principles of the fund, which are focused on market failure. So market failure in terms of viability gap. Whilst we did prioritise schemes based on the government criteria, we have, where possible, tried to also bring in schemes which have a stronger element of affordable homes as well as green credentials. So that was in the original selection of projects for this fund. Inevitably, we are not in control of the local planning process, and affordable housing is set by the local planning authority. I would say this scheme has had, in its history, there's quite a history to the planning, I understand, of it, quite a number of community benefits through Section 106, which the developer has put in up front and prior to coming to the fund. So whilst we don't see affordable homes as a community benefit in this locality, I think we have or will see a lot of other community benefits which were determined by the local planning authority.
That's really helpful. I guess I'd probably add to that and say where local authorities, thinking about my own place where affordable wasn't able to be built in one location, we ring fence some of that so we could deliver it in another location. So I'm sure different local authorities have different approaches to making sure that they can work affordable housing in the round, and perhaps not looking at it on a individual case basis, maybe take a bit more holistic view, but take that one back to the ranch. Okay, sorry, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, it was just to say, I don't know the area too well, to be honest, which is a bit bad considering it's Wakefield. But just to, I really do welcome in the report that there will be bungalows in there. I know that the demand for bungalows has exploded, and definitely in Hemsworth and around that area, there's a huge increase in searches and people want to live in them. So I think that will definitely be helping. And also, just want to point out the bird boxes and the bat boxes, which everyone's banging on about it. Everyone wants to see it, more of it, protecting nature, biodiversity. So welcome that as well. But I do believe that we are very supportive of it. The local plan did highlight this area as a place for housing growth, and I think we are looking at securing extra funding from BHF along with this. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I'm not seeing any more hands, so once again, can we take the approvals as read and look for a quick show of hands on that? Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on, the next one, which is the Leeds City Village Phase 1.
Thank you, Chair. So Leeds City Village Phase 1 is located opposite Leeds Cultural District in the Quarry Hill area of the city. This project will deliver 591 homes over 3 blocks of 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments and does include 102 affordable homes. The scheme will also deliver 8.3 thousand square feet of commercial space for office use and community amenities, including retail and leisure. The scheme also includes a micro combined heat and power plan. The value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 2.1 to 1, which represents high value for money. Total scheme cost is 200.33 million. Approval is sought to proceed through decision point 4 full business case, work to commence on activity 5 delivery, together with a funding approval of 7.667 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Thank you very much. Once again, any questions before we move on? Nope, not on this one. So just again, approval of the recommendations. Everyone happy? Thank you. Moving on to Middle Cross Extra Care.
So this project will develop 65 specialist affordable rented apartments in Leeds for those aged 55 or older, or for people with an identified care need in order to provide independent living. Scheme will be a blend of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments and include a range of communal facilities. The project will be built using low carbon alternatives to provide heating and hot water, and will have high insulation standards to support the lower running costs for tenants. Proposals are being explored also for a ground source heat pump loop system to be installed. Value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 2.3 to 1, representing high value for money. Total scheme cost is 19.472 million, and approval sought to proceed through decision point 2 to 4 business justification, work to commence on delivery, together with a funding approval of £1.3 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Fantastic. Always good to see extra care in there, and pleasing to see some good BCRs all across the pitch as well. Anyone want to speak on this one, Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, just really proud that this scheme's coming forward. I don't know if anybody, the newly opened extra care and general purpose housing in Middleton is absolutely superb. And going back to your point about dementia, when you go in there and there's a lovely bistro and things like that, but when residents are walking round, if they get lost, they will always come round. The corridors are circular, so they'll always end up back at the same place that they started, so they will never get lost, or there's no dead ends anywhere, and an amazing orangery. And it's just, I'm putting my name down. If I didn't live in East Leeds and love East Leeds, I'm putting my name down. But this, again, will be of that standard. Every single detail is looked at, and the team are incredible. So I really welcome the support from the Brownfield funding, so that, and particularly for working age people living with a protected characteristic and an identified care need, for them to have this high quality housing and have their independence and be able to work and things like that, I think is really welcome. Thank you.
That's really good to hear, and you know, isn't it great that we're using design principles to help people live lives with dignity and, you know, and kindness. Really good scheme. I'm guessing no one's going to have any objections to us endorsing that scheme. Seeing nods and sort of general hand waving, that'll do for me. Moving on to Parkwood Mills.
Thank you, Chair. So this scheme is in the Longwood area of the Kirklees district. The project will develop 39 new homes and regenerate just under a hectare of brownfield land. Site consists of 2 derelict mills, one of which will be retained as part of this scheme. The project comprises of a range of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in the mill and 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses across the wider site. The scheme will use recycled materials and meet low energy building standards. The value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 1.4 to 1, which represents acceptable value for money. The total scheme cost is 8.042 million, and approval is sought to proceed through decision points 2 to 4, business justification, work to commence on delivery, together with a funding approval of £600,000 from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Great stuff. Anyone want to speak on there? Kirklees colleagues? No?
I mean, I can do. I think it's, obviously I'd prefer if we had some social rented or affordable to buy housing in there, but I think the viability review has shown that in this case there needs to be some support to the commercial centre to redevelop the site at all, and it supports our wider regeneration programme. So, supported officers have helped support the bid, and hopefully we can support it collectively.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Yeah, good to see the Brownfield Housing Fund being used to good use. Once again, everyone happy with the recommended approvals on there? Nods, yes, thank you very much. Moving on to Plain Street.
Thank you, Chair. So another scheme in Kirklees. This scheme will develop 30 homes for affordable rent, including 2 and 3 bedroom homes, and regenerate 1.86 acres of brownfield land. The scheme will adopt the principles of the Code for Sustainable Homes Level 3, which will allow the properties to achieve a 25% reduction in carbon emissions when compared to a similar home built to meet regulations. Value for money assessment reflects benefit cost ratio of 1.1 to 1, which represents acceptable value for money. Total scheme cost is 8.917 million, and approval is sought to proceed through decision points 2 to 4, business justification, work to commence on activity 5, together with a funding approval of £450,000 from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Perfect, thank you very much, Councillor Crook.
Much more enthusiastic support from me for this one with affordable housing and higher environmental standards. I think this is a really good scheme, and I really hope we will support this one. Thanks.
Superb, yeah, sounds fantastic. Okay, once again, tacit approval. Yep, nods. Thank you very much. And the last one, which is St Cecilia Street.
Thank you, Chair. So St Cecilia Street in Leeds, just east of the Leeds Playhouse. This scheme will develop 78 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments for social rent. All 78 apartments will be delivered to a standard exceeding building regulations by using low carbon hot water systems, low water usage products and high levels of insulation throughout the buildings. The scheme will also connect to the Leeds Pipes heat network. 30% of the homes will be developed to standards for accessible and adaptable dwellings, and 2% of the homes will be developed to wheelchair adaptable standards. The value for money assessment reflects a benefit cost ratio of 1 to 1, which represents acceptable value for money. The total scheme cost is 17.889 million, and approval is sought to proceed through decision point 4, full business case, and work commence on delivery, together with a funding approval of 1.25 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate, for that. That's the last one, and I know Councillor Hayden will want to talk on that one.
Yeah, sorry. But I am so pleased this is coming through, because there's very, very expensive apartments in this area that they like to call Soyo. I will never, ever. It will always be Quarry Hill. I am not adopting that name. But so it's south of York Road. I'm really pleased. I'm delighted, because this will look like it will to anybody else walking around, it will be the same. It won't have a cinema like the built to rent, it won't have gyms and that sort of thing, but it will be to the same standards, built to the same standards, but social rent, meaning that we will have that truly socio-economic diversity as well as accessibility and all those characteristics. You know, homes available to people right in the heart of the city centre, right in the heart of the cultural quarter as well. So this is using commuted sums, which you mentioned earlier. So instead of having piecemeal apartments in the development itself, they're all together and being able to be built to certain specifications that we would want. So yeah, I'm really delighted, and you know, really hope that have the support of the committee.
Thank you, and I'm sure it will do. Isn't it great though, like to just see the sheer amount of properties and homes for people being developed across West Yorkshire as part of a patchwork of schemes that are happening anyway, whether that's through councils or private or a mix of both. I don't know about other people in the room, but the sheer amount of casework I get from people really struggling, especially with the social rented sector and private rented, is at terminal place at the moment. So really good to see this, especially thinking about all the environmental, age friendly, adaptability, and and social sort of rented things that we've talked about today. So thank you, Kate. I guess that's the final project approval we need, so just looking around the room for nods and smiley faces, which I'm getting back. Thank you so much, Kate, much appreciated. Okay, another fairly substantive item, which is the West Yorkshire Housing Strategy 2020-2040. I know councillors have been involved in the development and support of this, and I know Rebecca's going to speak on this in a minute. So I guess just this paper providing a bit of a committee with an update on the work on this since it last came to the committee. I hear we received over 1,000 impressions and 100 completed responses to consultations on that, and we've got details of the responses and changes. I guess what we're looking for here, because it is far progressed, isn't it? We're looking for some very final minor tweaks and amends as opposed to massive rewrites, because we don't want to do that to you, do we, Rebecca? You know, we're at the final furlong, aren't we? So I will pass to you to present the paper, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that summary and short recommendation to the committee there, not to give me tons and tons of work to do over the next 2 days. Yeah, just for those new members, just to give a little bit of an overview as to where we are with our West Yorkshire housing strategy. So committee members that have been here for some time will know we've been sort of working with you and with your teams on this for the last year or so, and have been developing at quite pace actually. For the first time we'll have a West Yorkshire housing strategy adopted by the Combined Authority. So the report today is presenting what will hopefully be the near final version of our housing strategy. At the last meeting, members agreed for us to take the draft report to public consultation, which, as Councillor Patient has outlined, received over 1,000 impressions and 113 full complete responses. Since then, myself and Carl, who's sat over there, has done a lot of work to get this into a final draft form, which is what you see today. So we've reviewed all that feedback, and just so officers are aware, we've also had extensive engagement across directorates internally, but with local authority teams, with the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership, Homes England, Historic England, the ICB and other partners that are in the room as well on the draft strategy that you see today. So we feel that we've had a really kind of strong level of buy-in and engagement from colleagues and partners in the development of what you've got in the appendix. I'm not going to go through in detail the consultation responses because we've given you quite a detailed section in the report, so I'm going to take that as read. What I did think it might just be helpful to address was some of the comments that members made at last meeting and where we've made changes. So one of the things that was said at last meeting was around strengthening the Combined Authority's role in the document, which we tried to do in the section on the role of the Combined Authority, demonstrating our track record on delivery of housing, on retrofit and various other agendas we talk about in the strategy. So things like what the reports Kate's just talked through, affordable housing, brownfield delivery, sustainability, the things that we have delivered. And part of that is around the audience for this document being into central government. So where Kate's talked there about some of the constraints of programmes, this is making our pitch for that flexible funding and devolution that we need in West Yorkshire to be able to deliver the suite of things that the committee has rightly questioned today around affordable housing, sustainable housing across our programmes. So one of the core purposes of this document is that sets our aims directly into government of what we want to see in West Yorkshire. So we've strengthened our kind of role in setting strategic direction, in convening partners around those objectives, and using our tools, powers and flexibilities to support our local authorities and private sector partners to deliver. You also see there's a new section in there around joining up our spatial ambitions. We felt it really important to make sure that we were really strongly aligned with our strategic place partnership, which Tamsin hopefully will advocate for that as well in West Yorkshire, to ensure that we are consistently putting back that clear message that as a collective in West Yorkshire we know where our strategic priorities and housing-led growth and regeneration opportunities are. So there's a section on what that looks like in West Yorkshire, but then drawing out at district level what those key opportunities are. Again, I just stressed to committee that all those areas have been agreed with local authorities. It's not something that we have produced independently as combined authority. We've worked extensively with officers and members to agree those as our strategic place priority focus areas. A comment that was made at last committee was around strengthening connections to our wider kind of strategy sphere at the combined authority. So we've increased, for example, our reference to creating well-connected places. Whilst at this moment in time, we can't say exactly where housing development will align to things like mass transit because of where we are on that journey. What we have done is put the right hooks in there to say that these growth opportunities and regeneration opportunities that come from us improving and creating a better connected transport network will align to our housing and regeneration growth opportunities. So we've tried to strengthen that through objective 1 of the document. Similarly, there were comments, I think actually from Helen and Andy before at last committee around skills and supply chain. So we've strengthened some links around ensuring that we're supporting the wider supply chain around this as well. So if we're going to develop more homes and we want to see that, we want to do more around retrofit, what's the supply chain and skills base that we need to do that? So hopefully they've got some improved hooks in there for that. Comment that was made around existing buildings and brownfield land at last committee in particular, around making sure that we're reusing as far as possible. Hopefully members see that through our Brownfield Housing Fund investment. But again, we've recognised, and thanks to Historic England for their consultation response, which was really helpful in that, the kind of suite of underused heritage buildings that we have in our region. And the more that we can do working together on schemes like Ellen Town Hall and Parkwood Mills, for example, where we're reusing existing buildings as much as we can through the funds and powers that we've got. I think it's worth pointing out the strategy is to 2040, which is ambitious. The reason it's ambitious is because those outcomes that we've set are things that don't change overnight, and we want it to be ambitious in saying things like we're going to work with partners to eliminate things like fuel poverty, etc. We need time to do that. Our delivery plan gives a year 1 to 3 things that we're going to do, and a section in there that says making the case to government of the further flexibilities that we will need in order to get to our 2040 ambitions. And then finally, we've done quite a lot of work with our research and intelligence team on developing an initial set of measuring indicators, so that what we hope to be able to bring to this committee, so that the committee feel like they can see what impacts this is having, is a future report on a regular basis that then shows you how we're performing, sort of like a weather chart type of thing against each of those indicators, and that committee can then help us and give us that steer as to where they think combined authority can support or do more to deliver. So moving forward, that will really help us working with you as a committee to see what impact we're having through our housing strategy. So as I said, the purpose of today's report is to seek any final comments from committee on the strategy document, and then ultimately to seek your endorsement subject to any of those final amendments to take the strategy to approval at full combined authority on the 14th of March. Following that, we're going to have a more designed up version and plan to have a more formal launch after the pre-election period. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. And I know back at the ranch, our housing officers are always really, really enthusiastic about working with the housing team here at the Combined Authority. And they said they were content with it, which I think is local government speak for. Really loved it. So take that as an endorsement from our place. Looking around the room, anyone want to add to anything? Is that you, Andy?
First of all, thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for kind of reflecting some of the comments from members of the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership, because I think you have. I think I could probably say they were more than content. Sorry, it's not always competitive, but they were really supportive, actually. And I think, a lot of the work that the members of the partnership do are reflected across all 4 objectives. I mean, obviously, specifically Objective 2, which is around about affordable housing, is very specific for us. But boosting supply generally is a good thing, and we know there's demand for housing of all tenure types and different types of property and accommodation as well. So that's to be welcomed. I think it's really positive that we've got something in there about existing homes, because the majority of our tenants for the foreseeable future are going to be in the homes we've already got, and a lot of those were built nearly 100 years ago now. And there's been very little funding and support for investment into existing homes, as members from local authorities and housing associations will know. And I think to have something in there is really positive. And again, I think that you mentioned the links to transport, which we'd like to see. And I think finally, the final word from me is, I think this is a really good document as a starting point to lobby any new government, and they really need to kind of put the money where the mouth is. And if they're really, if they're really real about devolution, then hopefully we'll see other funding streams or flexibility with existing funding streams, so that we can deliver against all these priorities, not just one or two.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really important we fill those policy spaces with our own really, really good, strong work. So there's stuff there on the shelf ready for any changes. Tamsin, I saw you as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I can certainly confirm that collaborative working and the way that we've developed this, or the way that the Combined Authority have developed the housing strategy with everybody around the table and beyond. I think it's really positive. We've got the Strategic Place Partnership. It's really reflected in this document, and I think it helps us to even strengthen that. We've got each of the districts with their housing strategies, but this, I think, really responds to a challenge we gave quite early on in terms of what's the value add at that West Yorkshire level. So I'm really pleased that that's been set out, and I think it certainly helps from a Homes England perspective us to make that strategic argument, give the strategic rationale for our decision making as well. So yeah, firm support from me.
That's great. Thank you so much. I guess it'd be remiss of me not to pick out the safety of walking and cycling stuff. It's a shame we've got such a woeful number, but people will say it's because of the hills. I don't buy that. But really, really good to see that picked out. And I think in the previous item, us thinking about creating spaces and places that have those connections and give the opportunity for us to move around different is really good. Anyone else? Stephen, I'm going to get to you first.
Hi, yeah, I think it's great as well to see the supply chain point noted again, because I know we talked about that in length last time, and I just wanted to bang the drum again that construction as a sector is really challenging. So anything that can be done, across the whole of West Yorkshire by the local authorities or the combined authorities is going to be key to the success of this. And I was just flicking through because I read it earlier, but the point about planning as well is a really good point. Not having the planning resource needed within those local authorities, and a downturn broadly. There's a piece of work to be done, across all levels. But it's really good to see that now brought more in here. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, it's an incredibly interesting strategy, and very, very welcome. What's really exercising me is looking at it's actually the smaller towns that people have less easy access to green space. So 15% in Kirklees and Calderdale, which I would automatically assume it would be the opposite way around, that Bradford and Leeds people would have less easy access to. So I just want that to be held in mind about how we can increase that kind of easy access, especially as particularly in Leeds, but it will be across the board, that we increase the densification of our housing build and developments, especially around the city centre rim, which is going to be the major development in Leeds. Out in the East Leeds extension with circa 4,000 homes, they will have much easier access to green space, but that'll be less. So it's a challenge, but it's something I think this committee should think about in terms of what you were saying about placemaking and keeping those figures in mind.
No, I'd really agree with that, and it is odd, isn't it? It's sort of topsy-turvy, but I live in the Upper Valley in Calderdale, and I step out and the hills in there, but that is not the same story for everyone in some central and northern parts of the borough, and I'm sure it tracks elsewhere. Richard?
Yeah, just congratulations to the team for getting the strategy and the reports to this really advanced stage now. So congratulations on that. I think in this area we do have this mixed picture, don't we, of tremendous character to the local area and the local buildings and housing stock and so on. But it's also old and it's challenging, and the geography is challenging in places as well. And I think just how we kind of work together on that to, I suppose, to build the livability and the character of these special places that we live in is really key too. And it's nice to see that coming through with the report. It's much more than simply getting more and better houses. It's about creating places that that are very livable. I think the Better Homes Hub and that kind of work is really key to this as well. It's just making people's lives better through that, and that broader role in terms of the industrial heritage and so on is really great to see that coming through. So thanks for that, and we're partners with yourselves on this and taking it forward and helping to kind of de-risk some of these historic and challenging sites as well. So yeah, well done. It's good stuff.
Thank you, Richard. Kathy?
What I wanted to offer is, once this has been signed off, which I understand happens on the 14th of March, I think it was something we can take through to our place committees across NHS West Yorkshire, where they're already working with housing in some way. And in fact, Wakefield is probably one of our best examples of how health and housing are working together. But I think I'm particularly interested in Objective 4 around creating resilient places. I think this is something where our place committees looking at NHS and broader health and care can take that on board as well. So we'll take that away to talk to our partnership board and place committees as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm only hearing nice positive comments so far. Maybe Lisa's going to change that.
Well, let's say. First of all, I just want to say I really welcome the confidence and the positive tone of this document, and that there's enough. You can see where the responses and the consultation have really been taken on board and worked with. You can see the collaboration that's gone in. That's really, really clear. And I think one of the points, I am going to say something, I've got a point. I think one of the things that we talked about previously was that housing in the right place, making sure of that connectivity piece, and you've mentioned it and it's in the document. The one thing I just was wondering is that there's not a measure around it. There's not and I know that's hard when we're in such a flux situation with the transport network. Is that a plan? Yeah, if I may chair on Lisa's point.
I think I'm not noting any more comments, so if you want to respond to Lisa's and then sort of sum up on the end, and then we'll take a recommendation if that's okay.
Not flashing green now, I don't quite know what that meant, but yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that with that, Lisa, that absolutely is. Some of this is around the timing of various strategies being developed and sort of plans for this year and coming years around mass transit, around connectivity infrastructure plan, around our local transport plan and other things. So alignment of those things, what we've tried to do as best we can is put the hooks in there so that as these kind of various strategies, which one challenge for us more widely as policy strategy teams is where we've got one thing happening in 2024, one coming in 2025, one is aligning a lot of that. So that is absolutely our intention, to keep going with that alignment, and this being kind of one thing in a suite of wider set of infrastructure related documents that link and connect together. So the fact that we work closely across directorates hopefully kind of helps give some comfort that is to come, and partly why we didn't want to set what we will do longer than 1 to 3 years, because what I'd like to do is, we're not going to bring this back to committee next in 2040, is that, we keep bringing iterative versions, particularly of that delivery plan, so that you can come back and sort of obviously give us that steer and direction as officers to say, okay, well, we said we'd do this, that this was first step, so that now is in place, how we're making those links stronger. So whilst I think we say as much as we can at the moment, I think that where we look to go is to keep bringing that back and keep giving you sort of updates on that delivery and that alignment between things, if that helps. And yeah, just thank you for everyone's comments and input as well. It's been kind of real effort, and among particularly local authorities teams as well, just to say they've had a lot of input and support for our team in developing this.
Thank you, and thank you to you and your team, and as you said, everyone that's inputted it. It's been very much a sort of collaborative piece of work, and really good to see it at this point, and hopefully endorsed in a week or so. But I'm looking around the room for tacit approval of that, and I'm getting it back. So thank you so much, Rebecca. Moving on, we have a presentation about the ICB and health outcomes by some of our new people in the room, which is about setting out the relationship between place regeneration and housing with health. So I'm going to hand over to Jen and Kathy to run this one, if that's okay.
Thanks very much indeed. Really, really pleased to be here. I think it builds on the recognition that the CA's been adopting of those really important links between everything that the CA does and its impact on people's health. So we really understand the role of whether it be the kind of economy, jobs, work and skills, transport, and also place regeneration and housing on people's health and well-being. And what's great is this chance to really look at how we build those links, how we understand that evidence, and how we increasingly become explicit in our policies and strategies around those links and the outcomes that we want to see. So just building on the previous item, how brilliant to see that kind of writ throughout, and everything that strategy is trying to achieve will have that impact that we want to see. So a real exemplar there. We've got this partnership agreement in place between the ICB and the CA. That really sets out that was signed back in September, and that sets out the kind of key areas that we want to work on together and those shared priorities. We've got some sort of small amounts of shared resources, one of those being human resources myself, bringing those things together. And we've got the reciprocal governance arrangements in place now with the Mayor and with the Chief Exec on the Integrated Care Partnership Board, and now Kathy on this committee, and Ian Holmes, Director of Strategy, also on the Climate and Environment Committee as well. So just wanted to kind of give that context, but really over to Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you. You've got a comprehensive document there, and very typically in public sector, particularly NHS, there's loads of information available online. I suppose what I wanted to share here is the Health and Care Act, which came in July 2022, gave NHS both the encouragement, if not the permission, to start working on broader social and economic development and make that broader contribution. In West Yorkshire, we have a very well-established health and care partnership. We're award-winning. We've been around for 6-7 years. We have brought local authorities together, particularly health and wellbeing boards, together with local healthcare systems and NHS and the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. But the Health and Care Act was the point where we had the permission really to do it. And there are 4 purposes to an integrated healthcare system. There are 42 of us in the country, and we're the one for West Yorkshire. And the 4th purpose is around the NHS making a broader contribution to social and economic development. We also have to use our resources wisely, as you do within local authorities. We also have a brief on tackling inequalities, and we also need to ensure that we have open, seamless access and there is no variation in access. And for those of you who are elected officials, I'm sure you hear regularly from your constituents around probably more likely around issues around access to the NHS rather than maybe the more positive experiences. So Jen's role is particularly about making sure that we've got health in every policy. Me being here today, I hope that you can already see there's some examples of how hopefully we can contribute to your work as well as you coming to being more involved with us. The NHS is simple yet complex, and we've tried to just summarise on one map and one of the pages there. We are 6 acute providers, so that's A&E, maternity services, where you go and have a hip operation. We've got 4 mental health providers. We have community provision. We have over 300 GP services across West Yorkshire. As of April last year, we also took on dental provision and commissioning, which is also what the Health and Care Act is enabling us to do. From next year, we'll take on immunisations and vaccinations, for example. And I don't want to get into the complexity of it, but a lot of this has been held nationally. And what's great, a point earlier on devolving down powers, is now we have got more power and decision making on certain services. And take the dental healthcare contract for commissioning that came through in April last year. There was an underspend of millions, around £5-6 million, that we then, in taking on the contract in April, having our first board meeting in public in May after taking on that contract, made the decision to spend that underspend to increase the capacity of that. So, and you as elected officials may be hearing a lot about certain issues with dental services. So there are a lot of activity going on. We meet as NHS West Yorkshire distinctly across 5 places, which map across our local authorities. We meet across different service provision, not only acute services, but mental health and community. And that then links into the ICP, the Integrated Care Partnership, which is the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership, which is where some of you as elected officials, your colleagues who are chairs of health and wellbeing boards, will be coming together. Our strategy as a health and care partnership is initially based on health and wellbeing board plans, then into a broader health system at place level, whether it's Wakefield or it's Bradford District and Craven, and then that comes up to create an overall strategy. So we've been embedded and connected together for some years now, but we're trying to be more deliberate in that, in working together. And I think there's lots of different opportunities, particularly already on working on fuel poverty, in working on dementia-ready housing, for example, and creating resilient communities. So there are a number of opportunities to get to know us a bit better. We have our next partnership board in Leeds next Tuesday at the Town Hall. We also will meet virtually, which might be more accessible to you. And we also, like this meeting, live stream the meetings as well as put them on record. And all our documentation is available online, like it is for this meeting as well. So I'm happy to take any questions now, but happy to take questions afterwards as well, Liz and Scott, if people want to find things out for clarification or any further queries. But yes, I'm really, really pleased to join you today and strengthen the partnership. Thank you.
Thanks both, and I guess it's a really good opportunity for us for this group and Wicked to sort of engage with public health on a better platform, and likewise sort of from your sense to help involve and influence the work that we're doing through Regeneration and economic development and stuff. Really good to see that. Debs was telling me that those connections are already been made, and you've got regular sort of monthly check-ins. Debs is our Director of Public Health, so it's good to see those connections already been forged. Anyone want to pick out any of that? Again, no need if it's fine for the moment. It feels like an ongoing dialogue that can be picked up, and really good to welcome you here and see how things can progress. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you everyone. Moving on to agenda item 10, which is about the Dementia Ready Housing Task Force. Just a bit of an update to the committee on this work. So about the recruitment of a new chair, which is Helen Lennon, just over there, and I'll let you speak on it rather than me, if that's okay.
It's confusing because there are 2 Helens. So I'm Helen Foreman from the Combined Authority. Helen Lennon isn't here, but she is our new chair. She's the Chief Exec of Connect Housing, and we're really pleased to have her. Just because it's been a year since we updated this committee and we've got several new members, just to, I guess, remind you of the Mayor's pledge to establish the Housing Task Force to make people's lives better through housing with dementia. And to remind you of the statistics on dementia, which are really quite staggering. The number of people with dementia is going to double in the UK in the next 25 years, and there are very few, older people living in supported accommodation. So it just stands to reason that we need to make our existing homes and our new general needs homes ready for that number of people with dementia. Is also the kind of focus of the Older People's Housing Task Force, which the government set up in March last year, which is ready to kind of make its recommendations now, and the Chief Medical Officer's annual report on health in an ageing society, which talks a lot about focusing on the quality rather than the quantity of life for older people. So the main point in the report is on the Dementia Ready Housing criteria, which is a set of criteria which we've developed through talking to the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership and through going through the considerable amounts of literature on dementia ready design. It's it's different to other dementia-ready or dementia-friendly design in that it applies to general needs housing. So the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership have committed to apply these criteria to all their new build homes coming through the pipeline. And that's different because it's meaning that these homes will be not necessarily people with dementia that live there, but if those people do develop dementia, those homes will be able to accommodate them for longer, and they can hopefully stay in their home for as long as they wish to do so, living a more healthy, happy life in their own community. So we're really delighted that the Housing Partnership approved those criteria in their new build property, so they'll be applying those to new build, but also they're going to look at their existing stock and what can be done to develop and assess those properties. So we're working on that too. Other things in the report are kind of the rest of the things we've been doing with the task force and other things we're doing on dementia within the combined authority, which I won't take you through, but just to kind of conclude there really, to ask you to note the work of the task force today and to endorse those criteria and ask questions.
Thank you so much, Helen. Andy, I'm wondering if you wanted to speak as well on this item.
Yep, sure, absolutely. Well, members, I think, of the partnership, we're really pleased to be able to kind of support this work. As has been stated, partners have agreed to try and incorporate this new specification into all new build projects. I suppose a bit of a plea for local authorities, if you could also build it into your planning specification process as well, that would really help, because a lot of our supply comes through 106 agreements, so without that it kind of we're out of control of that element. But certainly in terms of the stuff that we're going to commission ourselves, we'll be looking to include this. And we think actually, we've looked at our own pipeline over the next kind of 2 years, and we think that about 80-90% of what's coming forward, actually we can make it meet this criteria, and actually with with very little change. We think the council, we've taken a decision at WDH that we're going to try and provide all the step-free access, even where it wasn't part of the original specification. We're going to try and do that, because that's the biggest barrier, I think, in some of this criteria. So we're going to try and do that. And then the other element is mapping our existing stock. So we're going to do some work, I think, looking at our existing stock and see how much of that actually meets this criteria already. And again, what would it take to perhaps potentially adapt it so that it does, if it doesn't. And that'll give us a good picture of where we've got dementia-friendly stock already, maybe where we've got gaps, etc. So that might inform some future investment decisions then going forward.
That's brilliant, thank you. Councillor Burton.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it looks, it's great. My first kind of job in development was working on dementia-friendly housing, so it's really good to see a lot of these bits in there. The only one that is quite a big ask, so I can see why it's not in there, but obviously there's a lot about level access, but I wondered if there was a thing of having level access showers as the primary source of cleaning, essentially, within the house. And then also things around kind of, it's quite minor detail, but light fittings at the correct height, plug fittings at a higher height as well for accessibility, were the only things that I thought might also be included, but otherwise I think it's really good. Thanks.
Feel free to come back, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you for your support. Firstly, on plug sockets, I believe that for new build they are already at waist height, so in existing housing obviously that's more difficult, but I think that's the case. In terms of level access showers, that is something that we did look at, but something that in our attempts to work to play the balance between what was very expensive to achieve and really made a big difference to people with dementia, that kind of just fell on the wrong side of that line that we chose to draw. I guess in the document we are going to have a few extra recommendations at the end, things that people have mentioned that we didn't feel quite fitted into that, you know, to that balance. For instance, glass-fronted cabinets is one of those things that are seen to be really useful for people with dementia, because they can see what's in the cupboard and they don't tend to forget then. And contrasting toilet seats, these are things that couldn't be quite agreed on between all the people that we consulted, but we're going to list those at the end. So I wonder if that the level access shall might also be one of the things that we say is a kind of a nice to have it, if it can be achieved.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I just wondered if it's worth adding on that, Helen, that your criteria is for general needs housing. So it's to be applied to all housing stock, which I think is one of the reasons why it's obviously, if we roll this out to everything that West Yorkshire Housing Partnership deliver, it's about it being dementia ready, but for some housing, for some people, obviously having a bath is something that they need if they've got young children, etc. So I think that as well is one of the reasons. So kind of an addendum to that might be around where it's a home that's built specifically for supported or specialist living. That might be something you say, but I just thought it was worth making that really clear that this is a criteria that can be adopted to any.
Okay, thank you so much. Tamsin?
Yeah, I was just interested in the third recommendation, which is around spreading this out to the private sector as well. And I just thought there's a real opportunity, isn't there? We had the West Yorkshire Developer Forum in January, and I just wonder, we've got another one coming up in summer, and whether that could be a real opportunity to start to talk about why this is important and what that could mean for those private sector partners to start to use that as a bit of an opportunity to talk to people about it.
Brilliant, thanks so much. Did you want to come back on that, Helen?
Yeah, just to confirm, we have started conversations with the private sector. In fact, we did talk to somebody at the last developer forum, and we're looking, as is mentioned in the paper, at what we can do with our other schemes that we fund to see how we can roll that out. We're also having conversations with architects, but it's early stages for that at the moment. But we're also talking to the government's older people's housing task force, and they're aware of the criteria, and we're quite interested in them. So we're hoping that we can spread the influence further, but for starting with the homes that we have most influence over.
Very good. Thanks so much, and good to hear from you, Andy, about the opportunities for retrofit and making changes, and how that's perhaps a little bit easier than maybe we thought it was. But also thinking about how we embed this into some of our sort of modern thinking. And I know we've got an extra care scheme in Brighouse, Railway Bridge View, that's got sort of 10 specifically dementia-friendly apartments, and I know they've been proved really successful. It's a really great scheme, and good to hear about ones being delivered today as well. So I'm assuming everyone around the room is happy with endorsing and recommending this paper to move forward to the Combined Authority. I'm seeing nods on that one, so thank you very much, Helen and Andy, on that one. Moving forward to the High Street Heritage Action Zone programme, and a bit of an update on that, and that is coming from yourself, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. And we've not got loads and loads of time on that. We've maybe got around 5 minutes, but I thought it was really important to let you have the opportunity to present those slides. And I think you brought them to life there and have really shown the investment and the changes that have made a difference to our places. But I'll stop talking. I will open this up to the group for anyone who might want to pick out any of those questions there. Or it's possible you've stunned everyone into silence with your amazing group. Oh no, we've got a few now. Ben first, and then Helen.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. That was a very interesting presentation, and I think I suppose my observations and comments are that there's a role for these area-placed schemes. So I was thinking about, I've worked on townscape heritage initiatives in the past, and these sort of heritage action zones. I was wondering, is there going to be a further programme of area-based activity beyond this programme? And then to answer that specific question there about delivering ambitions, I think if there can be programmes and or it could be perhaps made a bit clearer to private sector that funding might be available for residential developments within these heritage buildings. I'm thinking more from my experience actually with Heritage Lottery Fund rather than Historic England, but you know, certainly with Heritage Lottery Fund after the credit crunch, there was a lot of focus on the Heritage Enterprise Scheme and bringing historic buildings back into commercial uses, and the sort of residential element of that fell away. And there was various workarounds that Heritage Lottery had, but it was never really entirely satisfactory that there was funding was available for residential. And as we've seen, some of these heritage buildings that are coming forward, obviously they are very expensive, and the funding that's available, say through Bramford Housing, doesn't always allow them to deliver affordable housing as well, which would within some of those schemes. So you know, just a bit of a plea, I think, to have sort of very specific guidance, I suppose.
I'm going to let Helen come in first if I can, and then capture them both.
Yeah, it's just what else it can pull in, and that first question about because my experience with New Briggate is that's what we call it, isn't it? To me, it's Upper Briggate, but it's and Kebab Row. When I was clubbing, that's where you went for your kebab and before going and getting a taxi home. So it was odd, but when I was in briefings with and having my highways briefings, it was we're going to take down these signs and we're going to put you know and get rid of the street colour because we were redeveloping the road as well, but it focused kind of like highways engineers or the planning colleagues and all different people as well as the heritage around St John's Church and our green spaces and play spaces. It really focused that attention and that this investment was going to go in. We want this to enhance the development, and therefore it kind of was a catalyst to other departments, is what I was saying. And I think that's really valuable in terms of the value it's added to the overall project that we could bring and that businesses could bring and the Grand Theatre brought, and it kind of all mushrooms from there. And I think that's what we're seeing in Wakefield as well. That fabulous that then people build on it and partners can build on it. So I want to say a huge thank you. And it now opens it up into the Bermontos pottery and going down into Malgate and all that, and our spatial thinking there and the design thing and that real industrial heritage that we want to enhance rather than and celebrate rather than just ignore. So thank you is what I'm saying.
And Councillor Graham, yeah.
Just to really quickly sort of associate myself with the comments from Helen, I think in Wakefield that, you know, I'm happy to be the case today that the amount of pride you brought back to the people of Wakefield, they absolutely love that street, they love the buildings, there's so much to see, and just uncovering them, you know, we couldn't have done it without that funding. And I think it's, for me, it's all of that, as well as it looking good, it's all of the additional activity that went around it. You know, we're getting walks and talks down there, we're getting apps and maps and everything that goes along with it, just is making people really happy and getting them back on the high street. Not just of a night when they are, you know, mortally drunk and you can't notice it. The day of the day as well, it's fantastic. So as much as I'd love to see much more of this, we've got other streets in Wakefield that I'd like to see this happen on. So yeah, very much welcome it, and very much welcome any support or funding from anyone else that can help to make that happen.
That's great, and again to also endorse them. I mean, slightly on a smaller scale, but Fire and Water and the work you've done in Sowerby Bridge, I think what it's done more than anything. Not only have you brought those buildings and are bringing those buildings back to life, you've also re-engaged some sections of the community who weren't active in local life, and I think that's probably one of the most powerful things that, you know, outcomes that's come out of it in terms of health and well-being and stuff. So I'm just gonna, if you can sort of address them in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, super. Well, thank you for the endorsements from those who've been involved in those schemes. That's really, really positive. Just to pick up on one or two alternatives, I think local authorities, you know, the highway is your domain, so highway schemes are relatively easy to deliver in the scheme of things. But tying that together, as we've done in Upper Brigger and in the course of doing in Sowerby Bridge, with the improvements to buildings, helps to give that more complete package. And certainly, you know, getting the different partners on board has felt like probably the single most important sort of legacy coming out of those schemes. I think there are challenges ahead. You know, certainly, you know, local authorities bringing funding to the table is difficult in the current circumstance. I mean, you know, 50-50 funding that we had with the High Street Housing Action Zones, you know, that's going to be really challenging for local authorities at the moment, and you know, that's part and parcel of our discussions in Bradford at the moment in terms of how we square that. Also, I think how we work to, I suppose, bring benefits to with other partners as well, and bring other people on board. That's something that we're really kind of interested in. But again, what are the kind of benefits that we can bring? I mean, I think one of the things that we see through this as well as a health and well-being benefits from doing this kind of work. It's about helping people enjoy the place that they live, and you know, support green spaces and those kinds of things. And I think just to come back to Ben's point about residential did feature in a small way with high street houses, but typically as demonstrator projects, because it is just so expensive to do, as we've seen from the presentations earlier on in the meeting. It is expensive, and also it isn't necessarily quite so visible in terms of the, I suppose, the public realm, and in the broadest sense of the word, with the vitality of the high street too. So we'd have loved to have seen more of that come through with our programmes, but you know, broadly speaking, it wasn't sort of affordable. And in terms of making the most immediate impact, facades of buildings, repair work, you know, shop fronts, public realm, and so on, and then the animation activity to bring people together have been the things that we'd really focused on. We're very open to conversations about housing schemes in historic buildings, but probably more on a repair grant footing.
Okay, thank you so much for coming and sharing all that news with us. We're going to have to press on though, I'm afraid, but much appreciated, and I think everyone got a lot out of that.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, and thanks for being patient, Justin, over to you to share with us the digital blueprint draft.
Thank you, Chair. And I won't repeat too much detail in the report. I'm just conscious that we would like some kind of discussion after this as well, in terms of the work that's done today. So just a very brief bit of background. Obviously, this is the West Yorkshire Digital Blueprint. We first introduced this to the committee last year when we outlined the proposed approach, and we got some kind of feedback on that in terms of where the direction of travel, which has been taken into account in the draft that's in the pack today. Today, I think we'd just like to gauge your thoughts on the first draft. To note that it's a pre-designed version, so it's mainly on the content at this stage. It will be worked up and finalised into something a bit more kind of glossy and presentable before publication. I think in terms of the context for developing it, I think this is the successor or replacement to the Lead City Region digital framework, which was dating back from 2019. So things have moved on a lot since then, and it also builds on the 2022 digital skills plan. So there's a direct relationship there. And obviously recognising since 2019 a lot's happened, and obviously we won't recount that, but obviously in terms of COVID, kind of leaving the EU, and also the significant level of technological advancements that we're seeing at the moment, the pace is kind of accelerating. I think that's the kind of the view of the sector. I think in terms of the structure of the document, it's quite a broad, cross-cutting agenda, which is challenging from a policy-making point of view, but also kind of legibility and actually kind of dicing that up. So we've split that into three kind of thematic kind of policy areas. So it's the place, the people, and the kind of and the business strands to that. And although it's again cross-cutting, the particular focus for this group is the place element. And just to home in on that in a little bit more detail, that refers to essentially kind of the digital infrastructure development attributes to the region, connectivity. Whether that's broadband, mobile connectivity, or the connected places agenda, which is sometimes referred to as smart cities. So we're recognising there that generally, I think our coverage is quite good on a kind of regional basis, but there are significant areas that are in a different position to that, and it's about how we address those, whether they be rural or kind of hard to reach for other reasons, whether that's kind of economic or kind of topographical in terms of land structures. I think in terms of those three themes, we've got throughout the document kind of some cross-cutting agendas that we've tried to highlight in terms of the main areas from a West Yorkshire footprint perspective that we can actually influence. So we've cut those up into kind of showcasing. So that's how we can kind of sell the digital opportunities that West Yorkshire has to offer. There's a bit focusing on kind of day-to-day life, and that's how digital technologies can make lives easier for our residents, our communities and our businesses. Advanced tech, so as I touched on earlier, just how we capitalise on those emerging areas of expertise and development. So that's kind of artificial intelligence, which we've heard about in the media, virtual reality and augmented reality, and also kind of quantum technology as well, which is kind of not too far away now, it's looking like. Digital inclusion, data, climate emergency. Again, there's quite strong links there. I think a lot of the activities that we're trying to do from a climate emergency and carbon reduction point of view are tech reliant. So I thought it was key that we had a section dedicated to that. And then finally, collaborative working. And that's just recognising that, again, from a West Yorkshire point of view, there are opportunities to bring cross-cutting, multidisciplinary groups of stakeholders and partners together to actually enhance our capabilities and our impact. Just in terms of kind of procedures so far, it is cross-cutting, so it's been across the Business, Economy and Innovation Committee so far, and also the Employment and Skills Committee, and they've both endorsed it. And then the view is, after the completion of today's agenda, we'll take the comments on board from those three committees and then finalise the document and then seek CA approval, Command Authority approval, in the summer before final publication. So there's three quick questions. So it's kind of just an overview, really, reflecting on the strengths and challenges of the region. Do we think the content's right? Are the outcomes ambitious enough? And also kind of any general feedback that we should think about. So to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. And we've got around 5 sort of minutes to cover this, so it's a bit tight. I would say just briefly, we've obviously got a challenge in Calderdale from the pull out from City Fibre, which is always difficult. So although it's a bit of going to potentially be a local impact, it also might affect sort of regional ambition. And we saw earlier, didn't we, that we're doing quite well in terms of 4G and digital rollout, but we don't want to be left behind on that. That's more of a reflection, not something that needs answering. Anyone want to pick out on that? Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, I think this is great. I think it's a really important and good piece of work. I think just in terms of some kind of general observations, that we also need to be, as well as coverage, we need to be really clear on take-up. Having the infrastructure is not the same as leveraging it. It's good from an investor perspective, but in order to reach the objectives that sit underneath all this, that really, I think we need to be clear on that. I would say we'd have a really clear plan in terms of the likes of coverage for schools, because we're really going to have a clear digital divide between the haves and the have-nots over the next 10 years anyway, as those that have got the coverage leverage the benefits and those that don't. And in terms of employment, it will create some divide if the schools are not able to teach what the kids are going to need for those skills going forward. I think as well, look at barrier busting, a big chunk of how investment rolls out and and how it is expedited is all to do with how it lands with local authorities and whether or not, and that's highways, that's planning, that's all sorts of other departments. So I would suggest there's more work to do in that. A close relationship with social housing is is also a good example. A lot of investment can't get into areas if it can't get the wayleaves and legal permissions that it needs to be in order to service those homes. I'm conscious of time, I've only got a couple more. Leveraging those public sector assets as well, what can be used from a public sector perspective in order to stimulate investment or investment quicker, because it's all going to get there, it's about getting it there quicker. And then the final point is, just in terms of a technology, I know we talk about gigabit now and gigabit capable and everything else, but actually we're moving beyond that. So we're looking at higher than gig services, 2, 3, 4, 5, because there's starting to be a demand, believe it or not, for, as AI and other things move forward, there's a demand for even better connectivity. So I think it's just worth keeping that in scope as well. That was it. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Kathy, ask everyone to be very concise.
We are about to appoint a new Chief Digital Information Officer for West Yorkshire, NHS West Yorkshire, so I think when they're in post we'll ask them to have a look at this. And I think more broadly, the NHS generally, nationally, is encouraging the public to use the NHS app more. It has more functionality, so there's a bit of a pitch there. Please sign up to the app and use it and get your repeat prescriptions that way. So I think there's a few things that we can cross-reference, particularly when we get our new Chief Digital Information Officer in post.
That's great, and I think there's probably a bit more time to shape this than perhaps the housing strategy from earlier, isn't there? This is more about an endorsement of the general direction of travel, but hopefully you've picked out some bits. Do you want to briefly come back on any of those, Justin?
Firstly, thank you for the comments. They're really constructive and helpful. I think it was useful taking the document through committee at this stage so we can get that level of feedback. I think in the comments from Steve Moore, I think a lot of those themes do fit with the collaboration element of the strategy, so I think we can weave those into that element of it quite neatly. And equally, it does chime with what we were thinking in terms of is that partnership model, whether it's social housing links or even in terms of the school estate as well. So we'll definitely weave those in, and completely noted in terms of the comments from Ms. Cathy. In terms of the digital office, I think that collaboration between the public sector estate is key. So I'm keen to explore that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. That looks like a general endorsement, and thank you. It's really good piece of work, and really looking forward to seeing it develop and progress based on some of the things we've said. Okay, thank you everyone for bearing with me. We got there in the end, and thank you, and managed to get everything in, and it's exactly 1 o'clock. But I do have one more item, which is just to tell you when the next meeting is, which is on Thursday, the 30th of May. So look forward to seeing the rest of you then. If you're up for election, good luck with that, and see you on the other side. Thank you so much. Really good meeting. Thanks all.
Thank you.